Welcome back to Mulberry Branch Farm, y'all. My name is Ashley, and today fall is just being its very fall self. Don't get me wrong, I love a good bonfire, I love hoodies, I love the cozy feeling that we all get when it finally starts to come away off of those scorching hot summer temperatures and we're starting to feel like the mood for soups and fireside chats and just fellowship with your loved ones indoors. Lots of layers. And then there's the thought of winter. I don't like the thought of winter, but everybody kind of gets fall a little mixed up. I get this a lot that, it's fall. Gardens are done, your animals are done milking. You should have plenty of time now to do things. And in theory, that makes a lot of sense, but it just doesn't work like that on a farm, y'all. This corn behind me is spent. We didn't really get into it a whole lot this year, but our goats got into it. The chickens have gotten into it, and you can see right here what I've got is I've got fodder that I'm going to actually be bundling up and putting in my barn. You guys saw a little bit of that just not too long ago. But it's also important too that I'm reusing these because I actually have to remove the corn stalks in order to get my landscape fabric up. So I have to go down the rows and I either have to yank it up by the roots, which in some cases is great, but if in other cases sometimes the stalk is a little bit more pliable, and I'm just going to go down with some plant shears and I'm going to just snip it off at the very root, top of the root ball. And that's going to allow me to pull this up. But at the beginning of the season, I really did not have a lot of faith in the landscape fabric because it took a lot of time. I bought this huge roll, then we had to roll it out, we had to cut it, we had to nail it down, and we had to go back and we had to burn holes where we actually felt like the proper spacing would be. And then by the end of it, I was like, man, that was a big headache. I don't even know if we're gonna do that this year. But I'm happy to say that even though change frightened me and a new routine kind of bothered me, which is totally normal for humans. We get in routines, it's like that for most anything that lives and walks and breathes on this earth. We get into routines, we get into our safe zones, and that's just kind of where we find comfort. And when we change that up, sometimes it makes us very uncomfortable. So while this is uncomfortable and I don't like pulling up these stalks are actually awesome because with the rising cost of feed, diesel fuel, all the things that are going to affect the harvest from our farmers this year, that I'm sure we'll see in inflation one way or another, which it is what it is. And it's what sets you apart in these times when you figure out how to save a buck and how you can use the things on your homestead that you might not usually use to kind of save $1 here or there or to make ends meet. I mean, really, that's self-sufficiency is about resiliency. And if you're going to be really self-sufficient, you learn to think on your toes. And these corn stalks are going to be fodder both for my donkeys and goats. I will be feeding my chickens. On this, I will be opening up all of these spaces and letting the goats and the donkeys come in, and they're going to be dropping all of their manure, and it's actually going to be amending the soil because what some people don't understand is that when you plant something in the dirt, in order for a plant to grow from the earth, it has to pull nutrients from the earth. And sometimes with the way that we do agriculture now, or a lot of people try to grow their food crops, we're not really going back and giving back to the soil. So we're taking a lot from it and we're not putting a lot back in. So this is kind of my way of both letting my goats get in here and clean up all this leftover forage, but they're also going to amend. So even though feed costs are going up, doing this, I'm feeding hay, I'm going to be feeding some grain for my girls that are either breeding or getting ready to kid, but they'll be returning that to me in the way of food through their manure to amend this area where we've grown most of our corn this year. There's just a lot of beauty when you get down to the brass tacks of homesteading, and you really do find that nature has built itself to be very cyclical, to take care of itself. It's really beautiful when you think of the cycle that is ever present on every homestead, whether you know about it or not. All right, we got her in. Here we go. I think I'm missing one. I think I've got one down there still to get, but that's all of our landscaping fabric to save us a couple of minutes here and there every day or hours on pulling weeds. I can remember laying this plastic down, burning holes in it, struggling to plant it for the first time because a lot of things that you'll find in homesteading, whenever it's your first time doing it, it can be really tough and it can be really disheartening, and you can come to the conclusion that saved me zero time than what I thought it would. That was gonna save me all this time. But I will admit, I felt that way with the landscape fabric. When we were first putting it down and we were cutting it, we were burning holes, and we had to figure out a system to go through and to efficiently plant all of it, go back and cover it. It really did feel like we were not going to be saving very much time. But I am happy to say this summer we pulled weeds 0 times. 0 times. We've got the chickens. I'm gonna start throwing some scratch grains down here so these guys can do their miracle of scratching up some of this ground and adding their nitrates to it. And very shortly we'll start adding our own manures and compost to this to let it overwinter. Girls, isn't it a little early, a little cold for a bath? Not if you're a duck, I guess. While the bane of my existence tends to be manure and manure removal and dirty bedding, especially in the busier months when that is like the last thing I have time to stop and do, but is super, super necessary for the hygiene and health of our animals, I do it. And I can tell you that while I hate doing this in the spring, summer, and fall months, when it comes to this point of the year now that we're in, which is about early winter, midwinter, we have some of the best compost that we could offer the soils of our land. And that's the whole reason why I always have endeavored to make sure that we keep up on our manure and our bedding removal, because nothing goes to waste here. Not one thing, not even the poop. Not the poop, not the straw, not the hay, not any of those things go to waste, because again, with the cyclical beauty of a farm and a homestead, anything that is waste to something is food to another. Any of the spoiled vegetables that I don't want, usually the ducks or the chickens or the goats on our farm want that waste. They turn my waste into their own waste, which is manure, which dirties up bedding, which I remove, and we let compost. We run our chickens over it. They scratch through it. They add their own nitrates, and throughout the season, it has a chance to kind of cool down. And now that we're in the winter months, and I can't wait for spring. I am buying seeds. I did an inventory of all of my seeds, but it got me thinking about my soil and all of that hard work, the bane of my existence, the waste that was my waste that became the goat's waste that I then had to move, has become something very, very nutritious for my soil. It's something that's going to add lots of nutrients, lots of minerals, lots of things back into the soil after a harvest, because when we harvest, we're harvesting plants that have taken from our soil the entire season. And sometimes, even if we leave those plants to die back and add those nutrients back, sometimes it's just not enough, depending on your plants. Like corn. Corn sucks the nitrates out of just about every soil, and it's really hard to replace that. That's why you see a lot of farmers running soybeans after corn, because corn takes nitrates, and then when they harvest the soybeans and all of the mulch that comes off of the combine from actually harvesting the soybean goes back to the soil, and it gives back nitrates so that soil can then give enough support to corn the next year. They kind of do like a successional planting. It's rotational. And that's kind of what we're doing here. We're making sure that we're adding nutrients back to our soil, because in not so many months, even though winter days feel very long and drawn out and cold here, it won't be long before it's warm, and we've got seeds in here and we're nurturing them, and we've prepared our soils ahead of time to nurture those seeds so that we don't have to work so hard. So that the soil is already ready to accept the seed and do a lot of the nurturing for us. So while it's the bane of my existence most of the time, right now they are sweet, sweet poops now. They are wonderful. I'm gonna probably close this off because You can tell the goats have eaten down everything. They've been in here, they've added manure. I've been putting donkey and goat manure that's overfill from the inside stalls and just putting that out as well. I'm probably gonna go and close that up. And this is where I will be feeding my chickens for the next few months, just so that they do a little bit more work for me and I don't have to hurt my back trying to spread all that manure by hand or my pitchfork. And they get a little bit of extra nutrients out of it as well, which then will go into eggs, which then feeds me again, which then goes into the nitrates in their poop, which they'll put back into the soil. You see how that kind of goes in a cycle? And that's super exciting. That's one of the main reasons why I love the life that I live. I love the stewardship of land and livestock because they really lend themselves to each other. And it helps me, and it makes me love it and feel connected to it even more. But guys, I think we're done for the day. We're done with this video. We've got our compost moved. I need to go back in and buy more seeds. And we got to start preparing for kidding season. So while I love that you guys spend your time with me, I hope that you let us know what you think of our video by dropping me a like, leaving me a comment, and subscribing. But until next time, guys, I hope that you are all staying safe out there and being kind to one another. We will catch you all in the next one. God bless you. Bye, y'all.